नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. Thank you all for coming this morning to the Srimad Bhagavatam class. We will continue to read from 6th canto, 7th chapter, verse 13. So I have to apologize. My vision is not so great, so you might see me, fumbling sometimes to read the purports, and that's why I have this. I can zoom in and zoom out, especially with the discussion we had yesterday about technology. I would love to read from the Bhagavatam, but this helps me sometimes to zoom in, zoom out. यो पारमेश्यं धीशनम् अधितिष्ठान्न कञ्चन प्रत्युत्तिष्ठेद् इति ब्रूयुर् धर्मं ते न परं विदुः. यो पारमेष्ठ्यं धीशनम् अधितिष्ठं न कञ्चन प्रत्युत्तिष्ठेद् इति ब्रूयुर् धर्मं ते न परं विदुः. One more time. Yo paramestham dhishanam aditishthana kanchana pratyutishthed iti bruyur dharmam tena param viduhu. Yo paramestham dhishanam aditishthana kanchana pratyutishthed iti bruyur dharmam tena param viduhu. Yo parameshtham dhishanam aditishthana kanchana pratyutishthed iti bruyur dharmam tena param viduhu. Go ahead. Ya parameshyam dhishanam adhitisthana kanchana pratyutishthed iti bruyur dharmam tena param viduhu. Any more? One more for the men side. Ya parameshyam dhishanam adhitisthana kanchana pratyutishthed iti bruyur dharmam tena param viduhu. Matajis. Ya parameshyam dhishanam adhitisthana kanchana pratyutishthed iti bruyur dharmam tena param viduhu. Yaha, anyone who, parameshyam, royal, dhishanam, throne, uditishtan, sitting on, na, not, kanchana, anyone, pratyutishtet, should rise before, iti, thus, bruyuhu, those who say, dharmam, the codes of religion, te, they, na, not, param, higher, viduhu, no. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. If a person says one who is situated on the exalted throne of a king should not stand up to show respect to another king or a brahmana, it is to be understood that he does not know the superior religious principles. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says in this regard that when a president or king is sitting on his throne, he does not need to show respect to everyone who comes within his assembly, but he must show respect to superiors like his spiritual master, Brahmana and Vaishnavas. There are many examples of how he should act. When Lord Krishna was sitting on his throne and Narada fortunately entered his assembly, even Lord Krishna immediately stood up with his officers and ministers to offer respectful obeisances to Narada. Narada knew that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Krishna knew that Narada was his devotee. But although Krishna is the Supreme Lord and Narada is the Lord's devotee, the Lord observed the religious etiquette. Since Narada was a brahmachari, a brahmana, and an exalted devotee, even Krishna, while acting as a king, offered his respectful obeisances unto Narada. Such is the conduct visible in the Vedic civilization. A civilization in which the people do not know how the representative of Narada and Krishna should be respected, how society should be formed, and how one should advance in Krishna consciousness. A society concerned only with manufacturing new cars and new skyscrapers every year and then breaking them to pieces and making new ones may be technologically advanced, but it is not a human civilization. A human civilization is advanced when its people follow the Chatur Varnim system, the system of 4 orders of life. There must be ideal first-class men to act as advisors, second-class men to act as administrators, third-class men to produce food and protect cows, and fourth-class men who obey the 3 higher classes of society. One who does not follow the standard system of society should be considered a 5th-class man. A society without Vedic laws and regulations will not be very helpful to humanity. As stated in this verse, Dharmam tena param viduhu. Such a society does not know the aim of life and the highest principle of religion. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham Karoti Vachalam Bhangum Langhayate Girim Yat kripatamaham vande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Thank you all for again coming. And I seek the blessings of Srila Prabhupada and the deities and the senior devotees here. So, although I'm sitting here on this Vyasasan, I feel very, very humble. And I seek your prayers to discuss this very, very important topic. So I've been thinking about this verse and this chapter since yesterday. So I thought I'll just take a step back a little bit here. So we will see in this, we have seen so far already that Indra, he is seated on his throne with his consort and he is being worshipped by, practically everyone in the universe. And in this scene, his spiritual master, Brihaspati, he comes into the assembly and he practically does nothing. Neither does he get up from his throne, nor does he, offer him obeisances, nor does he greet him, nor does he invite him. So practically nothing. He doesn't do anything. And Brihaspati, out of compassion, he leaves him. So just one highlight, I guess the main point, one of the main points. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his discussion with devotees, he asked him, what is the most unfortunate thing in this material world? And he says, to be bereft of the association of devotees. That's the most unfortunate thing. So here, Brihaspati, mercy sometimes appears otherwise. So out of his causeless mercy, he leaves the assembly. As was written here, understanding what's going to happen in the future, realizing that Indra, pride has gotten to him, and this is not the first time. It happens to him quite a bit. So he understands. He sort of foresees what's going to happen, and then he leaves. And then immediately, amazing, great credit to Indra, immediately he realizes, made a big mistake. And then he starts. So now this Indra is speaking. Indra, firstly, as we saw yesterday, he condemns his own, material opulence, which he attributes to his pride and becoming blind because of that pride and not acknowledging his spiritual master. And so then he's beginning to offer, publicly in front of all the assembled sages, he is doing that. And so this verse that we read today is also actually spoken by Indra. He's speaking. And he's saying that if a person says one who is situated on the exalted throne of a king should not stand up to show respect to another king or a brahmana, it is to be understood that he does not know the superior religious principles. So it's not that Indra, he doesn't know, it's quite clear that he knows, the religious principles. But where we and where Indra, before I say anything, we are speaking about these exalted personalities. So I have no qualification to actually say anything about these personalities. But the Supreme Lord, he uses one of his own to teach us. So Indra, I forgot what I was saying earlier. Yeah, so Indra, he knows, he knows, but where things become challenging for us and for him is the application of what we know. And then what gets in the way of application, one can say, are anarthas. So in one sense, we have to expect, many fall downs and then getting up again and then again, reinstating ourselves in devotional service. So this is to be expected, so we should not get dejected. But there are some core principles of devotional service we should be very, very, careful about. And one of them is Vaishnava Aparad, Sahati Mata offense, which is considered. So we should be very, very vigilant about that. And I was thinking about this. Here I am speaking about Vaishnava etiquette, and there are many, many senior devotees here. Whether it should be appropriate of me to speak, about this. But then I will share, more about that later. So this Vaishnava. So one of the main points in this section that I'm taking is the observance of proper Vaishnava achar, Vaishnava etiquette. And then as we see, after this happens, after Brihaspati leaves, he goes to, he's in trouble, he's defeated by the demons. Then he goes to Lord Brahma, then Lord Brahma gives him an advice to go to another Brahmana, and then Indra he goes. And you can see that, wow, I mean, he is now offering, perfect, he's observing etiquette, very wonderfully. So one other application for us is our observance of Vaishnava etiquette should not be circumstantial. This happens to us quite a bit. When we need something, then we are very, very, expert in observing Vaishnava etiquette properly. So it should not be circumstantial. So it should not be external. Of course, we are where we are, but we should strive to move in the direction of practicing these things internally. How important is Vaishnava etiquette, Vaishnava achar? I would like to read something from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So this is a very deep topic. So the time that we have will not really be enough. But this is what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells Sanatan Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antyalila, chapter 4, verse 129 and 130, and then 131. It says, "My dear Sanatana, although you are the deliverer of the entire universe, and although even the demigods and great saints are purified by touching you, it is a characteristic of a devotee to observe and protect the Vaishnava etiquette. Maintenance of the Vaishnava etiquette is the ornament of a devotee." Hare Krishna. Next verse. "If one transgresses the laws of etiquette, people make fun of him, and thus he is vanquished in both this world and the next. Maryada langhane loka kare upahasa. Iha loka paraloka dui hoya nasha." So I've just picked up, this is from the foreword of the introduction of the Vaishnava etiquette manual that I think way back devotees from the Radha Gopinath Mandir they put together. So this is just a very concise manual, because the Vaishnava etiquette topic is detailed. In every scripture it is discussed. But so we should study this manual and practice this. So that's what one main important thing here. And so we should not just study these, but learn how to carefully practice this under the guidance of devotees. So there should be prachar. So this Vaishnava manual, one can say, and these scriptures, they are doing the prachar for observing proper Vaishnava etiquette. But then how to actually learn it? One has to take shelter of a Vaishnava and learn from them, serve them menially, and learn from them. There are examples. So what I will do is I will also discuss different examples. Prabhupada gives a few in this purport, but besides that, there are some other examples also we'll discuss. Yeah. So here, the first thing is, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that when a king is sitting on his throne, He does not need to normally get up for everyone, to honor everyone. But when a spiritual master or a Vaishnava or a Brahmana comes, he has to do it. There's no question about it. So we will take some examples. So here, one example is given right here is when Lord Krishna, he's sitting on the throne in Dwaraka with all his, entourage. Narada Muni, he comes to visit him. And Lord Krishna, he rises from his throne and he offers him obeisances. Another example is Lord Krishna, and this is even more intimate. Lord Krishna is sitting on his bedstead with his, prime queen Rukmini, and in walks in Sudama, his childhood friend and a Brahmana, great Brahmana. And Lord Krishna, he gets off his bed and he actually offers the bed to Sudama, and he feels really, uncomfortable. But not only that, he doesn't stop there. He starts, worshipping. He washes his lotus feet. Then he offers him, literally he worships him. He offers him arati, and then he inquires about his, journey, like that. Then Lord Krishna, how he interacts with the Pandavas. The Pandavas, he had different relationships with the different brothers. To Yudhishthira Maharaj, who he considered himself to be elder than him, he would offer obeisances. To Arjuna and Bhishma, Bhima, Arjuna, he would, embrace them. Arjuna slightly differently, Bhima slightly differently again, depending on his relationship. And then Nakula and Sahadeva, he would receive obeisances from them. Similarly, from Bhagavatam, Bhishma Dev, actually so this Vaishnava etiquette, it is not circumstantial. It is of disposition of the heart. So Bhishma Dev, actually he is lying on the bed of arrows. So one can say, well, what can I do? Here is Lord Krishna coming in the chariot. The Pandavas are coming. The great sages are coming from all over the world. But Bhishma Dev, this is described in the scripture, very expertly, with just the movement of his eyes and his hands, he is offering appropriate etiquette to all the great personalities that come. So in his heart, he wants to do the externalities also, like offering obeisances, but his situation does not prevent him. But he does it. And what is the proof of him doing it? All the assembled sages and the great Vaishnavas, they are pleased with him. Like that. Then another example, where we may observe the etiquette externally, but we may not actually feel it within. So again, as I said, these are great personalities, and this is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. These are leelas to teach us something. So it is mentioned that when the first time when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, when they met, skipping many details, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he just saw Lord Chaitanya. He acknowledged, okay, he may be a great sannyasi. He looks like a very effulgent, amazing personality, but come on, give me a break. He is not the supreme personality of Godhead. This is what he told, his brother-in-law, Gopinath Acharya. And he, out of compassion, out of his false compassion, he instructed Lord Chaitanya that you are a very young sannyasi. It will be very difficult for you to, maintain your sannyas. So I will instruct you in Vedanta. So you can remain fixed, you can study Vedanta and you can remain fixed in Vedanta Sutra. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, as you wish, if that's what your desire is, I will learn Vedanta Sutra, I will hear from you. So here, in Srila Prabhupada explains, even my Guru Maharaj mentioned, so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he is the greatest scholar of the world, and he is a grihastha. And because of his his stature, Maharaj mentions, Prabhupada mentions that even many great sannyasis, they would actually come and listen to him, study from him. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he offered proper etiquette. Since he was a grihastha, he sat on a lower throne and he gave Mahaprabhu the higher seat. He's a sannyasi, so he gave him the higher seat. But internally, he was thinking that I am higher than him, I'm going to instruct him. So it doesn't really matter. One could be sitting on the Vyasasan and could be feeling, more humble than the blade of grass, or one could be sitting there and thinking, well, I'm better than the speaker. So it doesn't matter. So this Vaishnava observance, the etiquette. So Vaishnava etiquette is, is that there are externalities involved, of course, but then it's a disposition of the heart. Another example that comes to mind is from the early Srimad Bhagavatam, Roma Harshana. So he was a very qualified speaker. Even the name indicates Roma Harshana. That means when he would describe Srimad Bhagavatam, Roma Harshana, his hairs would stand on end. He would be in ecstasy. And Vyasadeva chose him. So Vyasadeva, as we know, he divided the Vedas, and he chose him to give the Puranas. So he's not a small fish, so to speak. He's a very advanced person. And he was speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, and the sages were sitting, and in walks in Lord Balaram himself, as he was touring about in the places of pilgrimage, and all the sages and everyone they stood, but somehow Ramaharshana felt, well, I'm speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, so the Bhagavatam is non different than the Lord, so it's okay if I don't, rise from my throne and offer obeisances. And Lord Balaram, he took an exception. He didn't buy into that logic. The Supreme Lord himself has come, and so he, vanquished him with the kosha grass. So this is, one can say, well, this is just a small, it's a small mistake. That. So again, the Vaishnava etiquette is a disposition of the heart, and we should carefully learn, how it is applied. And different, perfected personalities, they will apply differently. Some more pastimes, like Harinam Chinsamani. So in Harinam Chinsamani, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so this is a book by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's asking Haridas Thakur, so it's a dialogue, and he's asking Haridas Thakur to glorify the holy name. And of course Haridas Thakur is saying, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You actually have come to establish and give freely this holy name. How am I supposed to speak, the glories of holy name, that too to you? But then he understands, he realizes that this is your order, and so whatever I speak, I'm just a mere puppet in your hand, and you can make me speak as you like. So even though he is speaking, Haridas Thakur, to Lord Chaitanya, he understands his position. Similarly, Ramananda Rai, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asks him, what is the goal of life? And Ramananda Rai, he is hearing from Ramananda Rai. So these Vaishnavas, because this is all connected here, because here Prabhupada is saying that Krishna very well knew that he is a Supreme Personality of Godhead. Narada also knew that he is the Brahmana, he is the Vaishnava. So there was no confusion in anyone's mind about their position. But even then, the etiquette is perfectly observed. So here, Ramananda Rai, or Haridas Thakur, they are perfectly, cognizant of their position. That. So there are so many more examples, but just to give you, different examples. And so coming back to the Chaitanya Charitamrita Antyalila verse, so he is telling, Lord Chaitanya is telling Sanatana Goswami that actually you are the most perfected person. Just by seeing you and by touching you, people will become purified. You don't even have to do anything more. But he is saying, but he is requesting Sanatana Goswami, and he is saying, but this, I'll read it verbatim, can't capture it as it is. He's saying, my dear Sanatana, although you are the deliverer of the entire universe, And although even the demigods and great saints are purified by touching you, it is the characteristic of a devotee to observe and protect the Vaishnava etiquette. Maintenance of the Vaishnava etiquette is the ornament of a devotee. So, last two. It is a characteristic of a devotee to observe and protect the Vaishnava etiquette. So, Vaishnava etiquette, our acharyas explain, is like the eyelid. The eyelid, how the eyelid protects the eye. So, similarly, Vaishnava etiquette is like that. It protects the tender creeper of devotional service. It protects our own creeper, and it also helps protects others' creeper. Because as we saw in, again in the drama recently, Ramachandra Khan, past time. So wherever an offense is committed to a Vaishnava, it's not that only he gets in trouble. Everybody else also gets in trouble. Again, another example from scripture: Daksha and Lord Shiva. When Daksha offended Lord Shiva, of course, he lost his head and he got a goat's head. But practically, the followers of Lord Shiva, they just leveled the whole area. Everybody got smashed. So, it is in our interest to observe Vaishnava etiquette properly. And those of us that are in leadership position, it's very, very important, not only for our benefit, but for the benefit of everybody that is under our care to properly etiquette. Because if I don't observe Vaishnava etiquette properly, then even those that are dependent or looking up to me or us, they also get caught in that whole scene. So we should not partake in such things. Yeah. One other important element, so this as Mahaprabhu is telling Sanatana Goswami, Vaishnava etiquette, one doesn't observe Vaishnava etiquette, like one can say, wow, here, Indra, he didn't observe Vaishnava etiquette, he lost everything. The demons, they observed proper Vaishnava etiquette, they became powerful. So these are all, and then now Indra learned his lesson, and then next time around, he's very careful to observe proper etiquette with Vishwarup. So this is not the motivation really, that out of fear, I don't want something to happen to me. But the highest principle is Krishna is placed. Devotional service. The goal of your devotional service is, what is pleasing to Krishna, that I will do. So we can also observe Vaishnava etiquette from different, planes. Fear, respect. But really, if we cultivate practicing out of love, for this, culture, as Prabhupada mentions in the second half of the purport, this culture, it will please Krishna. Not only will it please Krishna, we can all advance. We can really fully receive this amazing gift of Krishna consciousness that our acharyas have come to give us. So the observance of Vaishnava etiquette, as Mahaprabhu says, the Vaishnava, it is his characteristic to observe, and it is the ornament, the maintenance of Vaishnava etiquette is the ornament of a devotee. If one transgresses the laws of etiquette, people make fun of him, and thus he is vanquished in both this world and the next. So now to the next part of the purport. So Prabhupada is talking about a civilization in which people who do not know how the representative of Narada and Krishna should be respected, how society should be formed, and how one should advance in Krishna consciousness. The society concerned only with manufacturing new cars and new skyscrapers every year and then breaking them to pieces and making new ones, maybe technologically advanced, but it is not a human civilization. So yesterday Prabhupada was explicit about America, but this disease is really not disease of America anymore. Everybody is caught up in this material world, in this idea of material advancement. Any part of the country, any part of the world you go to, this is what's happening. So so we may not be able to transform the world overnight, but at least if we accept these principles of Krishna consciousness, this Vaishnava Achar, so we can at least have an oasis in this desert. This Hare Krishna movement, Prabhupada said, this is like an oasis. So at least in this environment, we can experience the spiritual world and have others experience the spiritual world. So our sphere of influence, we should know what our sphere of influence is. So instead of trying to reform the whole world, reformer, reform thyself. So it begins from one by one. Any time when we need to change a culture or bring about a cultural revolution, it takes sustained effort. And then as here Prabhupada is saying, they make new cars, new skyscrapers, tear them down and then bring new ones. So we should be careful to receive this beautiful gift that we have received. I mean that we are being given carefully, not have our own ideas of tearing something apart, then making it again next year. We don't have to do all that. This Vaishnava philosophy is tested over time, and if we just somehow, our effort should be to go deeper and deeper into our practices year after year, like here Prabhupada is saying, tearing things apart. So whatever misconceptions we have, whatever anarthas we have, our goal should be to tear them apart, praying to Nrsingadev, not like, how can I adjust, the externals, or how the rules can change for me, so I can be comfortable. A human civilization is advanced when the people follow the Chaturvaranyam system, the system of 4 orders of life. There must be ideal first-class men to act as advisors, second-class men to act as administrators, third-class men to produce food and protect cows, and fourth-class men who obey the 3 higher classes of society. So again here, when I hear the word, or when we hear the word first class, second class, third class, fourth class, it's not about judgment. It's about these orders are there naturally in the society. So actually everybody is a Vaishnava. Ideally, the Jiva is a Vaishnava. So Prabhupada is saying that the fourth class man, the Shudra, for example, he is also a devotee. So these distinctions here that are being made, they are not so much in terms of the qualities. For example, in the Vedic system, classical Vedic system, everybody would be given first education would be character education. First, the character education would be given. And the basis of character education is theism. If you take God out of the picture, there is no question of character. So, God-centered, character development. And then, carefully the spiritual master, he evaluates, what is the psychophysical nature of somebody, and they may perform some duties based on their disposition. But they're all, the goal of life is to cultivate devotion to Vishnu. So in that, everybody is first class. There's no first class, second class, third class, fourth class. On the absolute platform, everybody is, on that platform, trying to cultivate attachment to Vishnu. So this, when we hear the class, this is not the classical perverted, Vedic, perverted class system that we often hear about. So there are natural orders. Brahmana is serving the Supreme Lord in a certain way. Kshatriya is serving the Supreme Lord in a certain way. Vaishya, Shudra, they are all serving the Supreme Lord. And so when this is spiritual harmony. Like in a pond, if multiple people throw pebbles into the pond, there are concentric circles that are formed and they clash against each other. But if we can picture that all of us are throwing a pebble at the same place, then these concentric circles, they actually gain force, they gain intensity. So this Chaturvaranyam system is actually, the center is Krishna. So everybody can water the same root. That is the idea. How I may, carry on my life, how I may do that, that's different based on, varna and ashrama. But the goal is the same. And then the system is there. The system is, in a way, it's not just a Vedic system, Prabhupada would say. It is there everywhere. This is not an artificial, you cannot artificially create it or you cannot artificially remove it. There are certain classes of men who will be the intelligentsia in every society. They will give direction, they are like the head. And then there are certain class of men who will be the administrators. There are people who will be mercantile. There are people who will be laborers. So it's there in every country. It's there. It's not artificial. Yeah. But then what's missing, is the Krishna at the center, God at the center. That's what is missing, and so obviously, when that's missing, then everything becomes perverted. Then everybody is trying to assert their superiority. The Shudras, the nature, for example, I was reading Bhagavad Gita. Surprising, one can say. You want to know what the quality for Shudra is? One of the qualities? Humility. Wow. So we are, according to the Vaishnava Siddhanta, the humility is the topmost quality, one of the topmost qualities. And then here, Bhagavad Gita is saying the Shudra, one of his qualities is his ornament is humility. So he follows his master. So this can clearly tell us this is not some perverted idea of a class system. It's just based on functions, and qualities. Yeah. One who does not follow the standard system of society should be considered a fifth class man. A society without Vedic laws and regulations will not be very helpful to humanity. As stated in this verse, Dharmam te ne param viduhu. Such a society does not know the aim of life and the highest principles of religion. So what is religion, Prabhupada would say? If a system of religion is awakening love of God, that's perfectly appropriate. That's the goal of religion. Savai pumsha paradharmo yatho bhaktir adhokshaje ahetuki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. So that's the goal of life, to render unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service unto the Lord. That is completely pleasing, suprasidati, to the soul. And so this observance of Vaishnava etiquette, Vaishnava achar, is a very, very important aspect to that, to cultivate, unmotivated and uninterrupted devotional service. So I thought we'll pause here and see if there is anybody would like to share anything, comment, correct. Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for class very much. I think that your comments about Vaishnava etiquette coming from the heart are very beneficial and useful. I also found it kind of enlightening what you said about the Sudra's quality of humility.
Say that again.
The Sudra's quality of humility, I found that very enlightening. But I wonder, from a Western point of view, especially like Western scholars, they would say that this system is a way of institutionalizing racism or keeping the poor in poverty. I wonder, what's the proper response to this?
So you can tell them. Well, the proof is in the pudding. Prabhupada, with greatest humility and due respect. Some of the disciples of Prabhupada that are leading this Hare Krishna movement now, where were they? Prabhupada, they themselves say it, so I can repeat it. They felt that Prabhupada pulled them out, of a deep dark well. And so from that place, in their own words, from even lower than fifth class, sixth class, now they have become Paramahamsas. So Vaishnava the core of Vaishnava Siddhanta is actually everybody should, you know, come closer to Krishna. So it's not about holding somebody back. Of course, yeah, there are verses that, for example, a Vaishnava Gurur Nasyad, right? That a Vaishnava cannot be a guru. But even if somebody was born in the family of a dog eater, Chandala, if he takes up to devotional service, he can be a guru. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for example, Lord Chaitanya, that was the issue that the Brahmanas had during that time. The Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was giving this holy name to everyone freely. And so the Brahmanas, as you're saying, the caste conscious and the protective Brahmanas said, wow, if everybody is going to become elevated, then what about me? How will I maintain myself? Who will ask me for any advice? And so on and so forth. So the Vaishnava philosophy is very, very deep. In a way, the Vaishnava mood is this. This is the mood you can, if they can get it, I don't know whether they'll get it. But the mood of Srimati Radharani is, who is the topmost devotee, she is thinking that actually I cannot please Krishna so much. But this person, he can actually please Krishna. So she is pushing others towards Krishna. So here the Vaishnava Siddhanta is not to pull people down, but is actually to push people up. Not artificially again. Because Prabhupada then people ask, when Prabhupada said many times, neither the hour is Brahmanas. So then we said, oh, so then should everybody in our Hare Krishna movement, that means everybody is expected to be a Brahmana? Prabhupada said, not artificially. Everybody will render devotional service. Somebody may have the nature to study scripture, teach scripture, perform yajnas, and do all that. They can do that. Others can practice devotional service anyway, and they can do other things. So not artificially again. So, but everybody is being encouraged to push to go towards the lotus feet of Krishna. That's clear. People, so like that.
And is devotional service the only way for someone born in a lower family to rise up, um, instead of, say, by skills or hard work, to rise up into a...
So the question is the devotional service the only way to rise up instead of?
Yeah, and as opposed to hard work or developing certain skills that are useful for higher class men?
Mm. Well, as I shared earlier, Srimad Bhagavatam is also quite clear about this. There is something called Swarupa Lakshana and there is Tathastha Lakshana. Hmm? Swarupa Lakshana is the constitutional qualities of the soul. What is the constitutional quality of the soul? Jivera Swarupa Hoya, Krishnera Nityadas, servant of the Supreme Lord. And Bhakti. That is the nature of the soul. So when those two are put in place, then the other qualities, or as you saying, rising up, other qualities will also rise. It's like the needle and the thread. The thread follows the needle. Another way of saying the same thing is, I mean, atheistic moralism does not sustain the test of time. We've seen it. What were the principles yesterday? They're gone tomorrow, today. Then, or they'll be gone tomorrow. So, what is it that is going to hold something to the test of time? Scripture, God consciousness. So, the scripture is saying that if a person who is cultivating devotional service in due course of time, not automatically, but in due course of time, with this morning only I was hearing. Sometimes we hear I'll just chant and we were hearing 13th chapter, items of knowledge. Krishna talks about qualities. So in those there are two, Maisha Ananya Bhakti Ravyabhisharani and Acharya Upasana. One can say they are the two most important qualities. Worshipping Krishna, Ananya Bhakti and Acharya Upasana, the spiritual master. So from these two everything else will come. Amanitvam, Madambitvam, and all those things will come. But so sometimes we say, well, I'll just chant the holy name, and Krishna mentioned they'll come. But this devotee was clearly speaking, His Grace Purijan Prabhu, that no, we have to make efforts also from our side. It's not, of course, there are efforts or something outside, but we have to make efforts. Um, so there's a verse which says that a devotee will be decorated with all good qualities. Hmm. And on the other hand, a person who is not devoted to the Supreme Lord, he may even have some opulences and nice qualities, but they are not substantial. I mean, it's not like they are not there. They are not substantial. They are not substantial meaning, depending on which way the wind is blowing, they may become manifest or they may become unmanifest. Because they are on the platform of the mind. Bhagavatam is saying, Manorathena, Dhavati. They are running. They are these personalities who are not rendering devotional service. They are on the mental platform, and the nature of mental platform is sankalpa vikalpa, accepting something, rejecting something, and so only a devotee in one sense can remain adhira, even when the circumstances become very great. He remains adhira, like Ambarish Maharaj, when Durvasmuni tried to kill him with a weapon, with a demon, he remained undisturbed. Um, so the scriptures say that, and there are scriptures that glorify verses after verses, where it says that even if one is as I said, Avaishnava Guru Nashyad, one who engages in devotional service, even though he may be born in a low family, he'll come to the highest platform. And also, one has to understand what is the conception of rising up. What is our idea of rising up? So that itself, is fraught with discrepancies. If my idea of rising up is Janma Aishwarya Shruta Shri, you follow? Then one can say, well, by hard work, and I can go up. But then devotees, we understand that there are the laws of nature also, laws of karma. Prabhupada would say there are so many people working, 20 hours a day, and they are barely able to put a meal together. And there is this gentleman who is barely working anything. He's a millionaire. Why? So if it was just our own effort, then this is karma movements of philosophy. Lord Krishna, he preaches in Govardhan Lila. He says, forget Indra, don't worship Indra. And he preaches the same philosophy. He said actually the work is worship. If any, like I was having a discussion with the devotee in Sankirtana, he said actually our limitation, some devotee book distribution, our limitation is our mind. We can be whoever we want to be. That was his philosophy basically. He started with saying, we want to go into a stage of nothingness, nirvana, and then by the end of the discussion, he was saying wanting to become God. Like I said, okay, so it didn't make sense. Yeah. So it also depends. Well, it starts with having a conception of what is rising up. Because if we are in this material world, it is all a place of darkness. So if we are talking about rising up, really uttama, to go beyond tama, beyond darkness, devotional service is the only way. Yeah, you can go for a nice, vacation and Brahma, I mean, like circumambulate the universe based on our material piety that we may accrue, but we'll still be within the realms of the material realm. Will still be there. Okay, thank you. Anything else? Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, I was looking at the verse. If a person says one who is situated on the exalted throne of a king should not stand up and show respect to another king or a Brahmin, it is understood that he does not know the superior religious principles. I was in the Prabhupada Leelamrita. Prabhupada was in Paris. You remember that past time where everybody stood up except for Srila Prabhupada? And they were looking at Prabhupada, why don't you stand up and offer respects to the mayor? Or they something to that, and then Prabhupada stand up and offer respects to who? Do you remember that? Does anybody remember reading that past time?
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
So I just thought this was kind of similar to what we're talking about here.
Yeah, correct. We'll end with one other pastime. Again, Srila Prabhupada Leela. Uh, one time in New York, I think Prabhu might know this. One time in New York, Srila Prabhupada was coming, and the temple uh, president and all the devotees, they felt it would be really nice to give Prabhupada an amazing welcome. So all of us will go to the airport, and then the person, the devotee was driving Srila Prabhupada, he was somehow given an instruction to take like a little bit of a longer route to back to the temple. And so meanwhile all the devotees could get back. And then Prabhupada would be given a beautiful, rousing welcome even in the temple. So that was their plan. And somehow what happened was the devotee who was driving Prabhupada, he got to the temple first. And some of the devotees, they took a long turn or something and they didn't get to the temple. And so when Prabhupada came, my Guru Maharaj was explaining, so this devotee, she was offering arati to the Supreme Lord, Radha Govinda. And there's quiet temple room at 12 o'clock arati. And then Prabhupada walks in. And Maharaj was explaining that, so of course then there was, the altar was like, not like this high, just like a few steps up is the altar, like that. And so this devotee, she was offering the arati. And she was, her spiritual master walks in. And then so she gets down the stairs and she offers him obeisances. And then she goes back onto the altar and then she continues the worship. And then after the arati was done, somehow she was like wondering, wow, I mean, she wanted to receive a confirmation. Was that the right thing to do? Because in the act of devotion it is mentioned that one should not, offer obeisances in front of the deity to anyone. So she asked him. And then Prabhupada said, no, what she did is perfectly appropriate. So of course, my Guru Maharaj explained that, so this standard within ISKCON, only Srila Prabhupada has that right. It would be appropriate to do that. For us, we may do that in our hearts. Like let's say a spiritual master walks in, so we can do that in our heart. But we may actually not be able to do this. At least that's the way my Guru Maharaj explained that this. So we should apply this properly. That was exclusively for Prabhupada, just like how even Guru Puja, Prabhupada wanted, for some reasons, that his Guru Puja be done with the altar open in front of the deities. Especially because of Kali Yuga mentality, his idea was that with due course of time, what could eventually happen is, the minimization of his position and so on and so forth, and then everything will go to the dogs. So it's not that he needs worship, but it is to protect us, from minimizing. I didn't cover that part here, but one of the reasons why Indra did not get up, Prabhupada writes in the purpose later, is familiarity breeds contempt. So Brihaspati is the spiritual master. He would come every day, in and out to the assembly of Indra. So then when you see a Vaishnava every day in and out, then what happens is familiarity seeps in. And then you say, I'll not offer obeisances once, then it becomes twice, then before you know it, boom. So Prabhupada talks about that, how one should carefully guard against familiarity. Because when familiarity seeps in, then what we observe, what this is what happens, then we start loosening in our Vaishnava etiquette, observance of Vaishnava etiquette. So that's why Prabhupada always encouraged us, at least the first time you see somebody in the day offering obeisances, first thing in the morning, if you see the devotee first time offering obeisances, Prabhu, addressing each other as Prabhu and Mataji. So we can just do these things externally, but if we do it from our heart, this is devotional service. Like Mahaprabhu will be very, very pleased, like he told Sanatana Goswami. Okay, thank you. So this is a class more for myself, Vaishnava etiquette, to observe it properly. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Acha, Prabhu.